with the objective to generally further the principles of press freedom and freedom of expression, as well as access to information, Namibia Media Trust hosted a conference on the future of journalism education in Southern Africa under the topic of AI in Action, Contemporary Practices in Namibian Newsrooms. Now, to share more on the conference is the director at the Namibia Media Trust, Zoe Titus. Good evening, Zoe, and welcome to the show.
Good evening. Great to be talking to you.
Well, Zoe, what would you say are the main objectives of the conference on the future of journalism education in Southern Africa?
Well, our main objectives have always been to consider contemporary issues happening in journalism and journalism education, and to create a platform for discussion on these issues, especially involving journalists, academia, policymakers, and also journalism students.
Can you provide us with an overview of the current state of journalism education in Namibia and also in other countries in the region?
Sorry, would you repeat that, please?
Can you provide us with an overview of the current state of journalism education in Namibia and also in other countries in the region?
Well, on the issue of journalism education, there's a lot of innovation around journalism education. Most recently, a network was officially established, the African Journalism Education Network, which is really working towards bringing various actors together to improve the quality of journalism education and to ensure, most importantly, that journalism education is relevant to the needs of, working journalists and the demands of journalists, in our contemporary society. But at the same time, today, for example, we realize that, especially on this particular topic of artificial intelligence, that this is a big learning curve. There's a big learning curve ahead for journalists and media organizations, and that a lot of capacity needs to be developed in Namibia, in the region, and most importantly that, we would have to work collectively to ensure that we improve the quality both of journalism and journalism education, because it ultimately benefits citizens more broadly.
So, Joey, what would you say are some of the key challenges that are facing journalism education in Southern Africa, and how were they addressed during the conference?
Well, I think on several occasions people spoke about the disconnect between what is happening in journalism education institutions, especially at tertiary level, and what the practical needs are in the newsroom. The feeling that, journalists coming out of tertiary education institutions do actually not have the skills to be productive in a newsroom. So there's a bit of a disconnect. So a lot more practical training needs to take place, but I think most importantly that there must be a much stronger connection between journalism education institutions and the need of the industry. This is not a Namibian problem. This is, I think, this is a continental problem. So it requires a lot of capacity building. It requires a lot of discussion amongst the relevant stakeholders. So that is the issue that came up. But in this particular context, it is also about, for example, how artificial intelligence is being approached by journalists or used by journalists and media institutions, and that there is not, let's say, a supporting environment for that. by, the educational institutions to help the media institutions, connect the dots and to innovate around artificial intelligence and how that can improve and support journalism.
Mm-hmm. So obviously the topic of AI was also discussed, but what would you say are some of the topics or the themes that stood out during the conference?
So once again, could you just repeat that? The line is not that great.
What would you say are some of the topics or themes that stood out during the conference?
Well, probably one of the most important things was innovation in the newsroom, how the understanding of artificial intelligence and how that is being used. I think one of the important discussion points, or one of the sessions that actually drew a lot of interest was a discussion on global trends on the use of AI in newsrooms. And that was presented by Professor Charlie Beckett, where he spoke about, for example, lack of data being a particular challenge, and that was a recurring theme. Even today, for example, when a journalist gets information, most of that information is on hard copy, paper or a PDF document. So data is not easily accessible. So a journalist is not able to mine that data in order to get, draw, put all the dots together. The other issue was about audience engagement and how journalism or media houses could use artificial intelligence and data to grow their audiences, to promote growth, especially in, smaller newsrooms. I think those are the major issues that came up. Obviously, an important issue that also came up is the policy framework that we have in Namibia. Because this was happening today in Namibia. Tomorrow, the conference continues and it will be hosted locally in Bulawayo. And then the third day, it will be hosted in Lilongwe in Malawi. So we were particularly interested in what Namibian newsrooms or the challenges being faced by journalists in Namibian newsrooms. And we had representatives from Future Media, from the NBC and the Namibian there speaking about the challenges that they are facing. And it is about how to really effectively deploy artificial intelligence in ways that are meaningful to their media organizations and would help them to produce good content. It's about production, really about production that improves great storytelling and ultimately the content for their audiences.
So Zoe, talk to us about some of the keynote speakers or panelists, specialists that participated in the conference, and what expertise or insights did they have to bring to the table?
Well, we were very excited, by the quality of speakers that we could attract to this first day of the conference. Our opening panel, the speakers were Christofina Shilongo. She's a Namibian. She's a tech policy researcher and senior tech policy fellow at Mozilla Foundation. And then Dr. Gregory Gondwe, who's an assistant professor of journalism studies and a 2022-23 Harvard visiting scholar. So Christofina is doing research around artificial intelligence and governance. And she's particularly interested in how artificial intelligence is being used to improve society and how it is being applied to improve sustainability and generally the lives of people. And then Dr. Gondwe, with his background, he was able to speak to us about his recent research on the use of ChatGPT in newsrooms in Africa. So, I mean, that was particularly interesting because he spoke about things like algorithmic bias. He spoke about, as I mentioned before, the lack of understanding of AI and the need to build the capacity of journalists to use artificial intelligence to their benefit. And I think another highlight was also the fact that we had Professor Charlie Beckett, who is the head of POLIS at the London School of Economics, the Journalism and AI Research Project. And he spoke about the global trends on the use of artificial intelligence in newsrooms. They've just recently launched a report, and he was able to give us some insights from Southern Africa. I think one of the things that he particularly focused on is the lack of data, which I referred to earlier, and what he refers to as the intentional use of AI, again, ensuring that it actually is deployed to the benefit of local newsroom at a pace that is advantageous to local newsrooms. But the important thing that he pointed out is that we always need to consider the political context also of, artificial intelligence. The fact that this narrative around artificial intelligence is being driven by the North. And we in the global South are not as actively engaged in this process, which puts us, at a disadvantage. We raise the issue of digital colonialism, for example, the fact that so much data is being extracted from Africa to, load large language models, and that it largely benefits big tech companies who are not really interested in the socio-economic benefits of, the deployment of artificial intelligence. I think one of the highlights of the day for me personally was a masterclass by Alette Law. She's the audience development manager at the Daily Maverick in South Africa. And she presented the masterclass on how, small teams could focus on, and how their focus on audience could cultivate sustainable growth. And she shared some lessons from the Daily Maverick, which has won so many awards for their newsletter and the way that they engage with our audience, and how they also employ artificial intelligence in that process. So it was a really, really good day. But, we are speaking about, external people here. Aside from Christofina, what really struck me was the fact that we had Namibian senior managers in the room who shared experiences of how AI is deployed or not within their newsroom. So it wasn't just a kind of inflow of information from foreign experts. We really, really tackled the practical application of AI and digital technologies in Namibian newsrooms.
Well, Zoe, I thank you so much for speaking to us, and we certainly hope that the outcomes that you are looking for are going to be achieved after your conference.
Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Well, that is Zoe Titus, who is the director at the Media Trust, talking to us there about the just ended conference that has been hosted on the future of journalism education in Southern Africa under the topic of AI in Action, Contemporary Practices in Namibian Newsrooms. The Daily Roundup will continue.